Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing a new challenge to the internal security of India, and that is trafficking in the Northeast. So as we know, the Northeast essentially consists of 8 states. There is Sikkim, and then there are the 7 sisters, which are the Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Manipur, Tripura, Mizoram, Assam. The Northeast also is bordered or shares international borders with Myanmar, Bhutan, as well as Bangladesh. Now, this region is populated with a lot of socio-cultural and ethnic and political similarities as well as differences, but this area has become increasingly contentious due to the development of several insurgency movements and the violence that has accompanied them. And there are various reasons for this, according to a lot of experts. The first reason is basically that this area is isolated from the rest of the Indian mainland because it is connected through the very narrow Chicken's Neck or the Siliguri corridor. The population in these areas also are ethnically different from a lot of mainland India's population, and they do share, due to various migrations that have happened over the years or the arbitrary drawing of borders, a lot of similarities with populations in Myanmar or in China. So then there are a lot of historical linkages that are also pervading. Then of course there is also a very disproportionate kind of development that has occurred in these areas, which has further alienated the population in these areas from the rest of the counterparts in the mainland, because due to the failure or the inefficiency of the autonomous district councils and other things. So there are schemes that are persisting now. However, there has been generally a lack of development of civic facilities like better roads or better health centers, educational institutions, and these kind of things. So in general, these areas have also felt genuinely alienated from the Indian population in the mainland. There has also been consistent levels of illicit migrations that have come from other countries. So there have been populations in these areas that have also felt a relative deprivation gap, as they have felt that migrants have been stealing their jobs or accessing resources that are generally meant for them. So essentially, this area is festering with a lot of conflict. So, or a lot of disillusionment and disenchantment and alienation from mainland India or the central government, essentially. Other than that, there are also, because these areas are essentially populated by tribal populations which have their own mode of political organization and social organization and cultural economy, they also generally have developed parallel systems to which may not always agree with the ones that have been set out by the Indian state. So there have also been several differences and divergences in that. What this has essentially led to is that there has been, number one, the formation of an illegal economy that has been led by smuggling and trafficking, where a lot of these insurgent groups have extorted what they call taxes from households, from police, from highways to fund their activities. It has also led to the development of deep transactional networks with other similarly insurgent groups in the neighboring foreign countries. And it has led to, because of the fact that these populations have turned away from the Indian state or felt alienated by the Indian state, they have more and more moved towards these other foreign forces that are using them or utilizing them and manipulating them to destabilize the Indian state. So this is essentially the entire environment in which we would talk about trafficking in the Northeast. Now, according to the Federation of the Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries, their committee against smuggling and counterfeiting activities that destroy economy, which is called Cascade, they noted in 2021 that the COVID-19 crisis has significantly exacerbated this entire issue. And the reason this has happened is because of the fact that the recurrent lockdowns, and of course, and already this region is so alienated from, and already it faces such economic underdevelopment, it has led to a lot of people in the Northeast losing their livelihoods, their already vulnerable livelihoods. So essentially, they have been utilized by insurgent groups both on this side and outside the country to smuggle items like counterfeit currency, betel nuts, cigarettes, and other psychotropic substances like drugs across the borders or through the country into the rest, through the Northeast into the rest of the country. And these have essentially been transported hidden in truckloads of that are carrying potatoes, rice, machinery parts, and other things like this. So according to FICCI and Cascade, what essentially this has done is that this has of course destabilized local populations. This has also destabilized or taken away or harassed the development of local industries, and they have also drained the government exchequer by reinforcing opportunities that come from tax arbitrage. So why is smuggling essentially a threat to internal security? The first thing is, of course, because internal security is largely dependent on peace and stability and generally harmony being maintained within the populations in a particular country, which is India in this case. any kind of smuggling or trafficking in a variety of ways, it destabilizes this peace and stability, not only because of the violence that it accompanies, but also because it may degenerate, it may cause a degeneration of the youth population, it may lead to the devastation of economies and industries. And the second, and perhaps the more relevant reason why it's a threat to internal security, is because there are consistent linkages between insurgent outfits that are operating in the Northeast and trafficking networks, so whether they be human trafficking, drug trafficking, or arms smuggling. Because essentially what these insurgent outfits do is either, of course, they utilize these networks to fund their own activities. So they would, for example, provide safe passage to narcotics that are being smuggled from Bangladesh and Myanmar into India and then outwards into Nepal or even Europe. And they would use the profits from that to essentially fund their own activities. They may also, for example, use these networks to acquire arms for themselves, which is what essentially they do when it comes to arms smuggling. They may also utilize these networks to better their relationships with existing insurgent outfits outside the country. So these are all the reasons why smuggling or trafficking in the Northeast essentially cause threats to internal security in India. Now, when we talk about smuggling or trafficking in the Northeast, then we are essentially focusing on three kinds of smuggling or trafficking. So the first is narcotic smuggling, second is arms trafficking, and the third is human trafficking. So essentially, when we talk about narcotic smuggling, the reason why this is prevalent in the Northeast is basically for a variety of factors. The first is that the Northeast is geographically close to the Golden Triangle, which essentially includes Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, which is the absolute epicenter for the production and the distribution of illicit narcotics. That is number one. Number two is in Myanmar, which was Burma before, the dissolution of the Communist Party of Burma in 1989 led to the armies of the party essentially entering into drug trade to fund their their businesses, and it has come to a point where the Tatmadaw, which is the Burmese army, could not also contain them. Thirdly, poppy is also cultivated in Northeast India internally. It is cultivated and then it is manufactured into base heroin or brown sugar, and then it is transported either outside the country through these borders into Myanmar or Bangladesh, or through truckloads, hidden consignments in truckloads through UP and Bihar into Nepal, Bhutan and beyond. So essentially what the Northeast has become is that not only is it an origination point for illicit narcotics, it is also a transit point, it is also a transport network. This has also become more problematic because of the fact that acetic anhydride, which is a chemical that is used to essentially manufacture psychotropic substances, including methamphetamines as well as heroin or brown sugar, there are factories that essentially produce this along the border. So this has further exacerbated this problem. Additionally, in the recent years, there has been a new threat of narco-terrorism that has been discovered, where yaba tablets, which is essentially also known as Nazi speed or the madness drug, they are also being transported from Myanmar through the Northeast back into Bangladesh. So essentially this of course also has caused a lot of problems, because this has essentially has also devastated youth populations, because what happens is essentially when these drugs are taking this route, essentially when the Northeast acts as a route for illicit narcotics trafficking, it is not that all the narcotics will go completely, it is not that it will not affect the local population. So what happens is they are also distributed amongst the local population, who then may also distribute it throughout the rest of India. So this has genuinely led to a lot of youths, generations of youth being their ambitions and their employability is being destroyed, because they have essentially become involved in this trade. So essentially, this is the entire story of narcotics trafficking. There is also cough-based codeine syrups, which essentially youths in Bangladesh utilize as alternatives to alcohol. So even these are illegally trafficked through India from Myanmar into Bangladesh. So essentially, this is indeed when I had visited a village in Nagaland, which is absolutely on the border with Myanmar, called Longwa. That village was absolutely infamous for the cultivation of poppy and therefore of opium and of heroin. And that had devastated, I saw firsthand, had devastated generations of youth population, and not only that, it had also devastated the local ethnic, cultural particularity. So they had this entire culture of headhunters and the Ang, who is the village chief. But all of these were essentially destroyed, not only of course because the youth were becoming involved in drugs and they were genuinely becoming involved in these kind of illicit activities, but also because due to this involvement there was a huge crackdown of the Indian security forces on these populations, which then led to further decimation of their cultures. So I have noticed firsthand as well how narcotics trafficking and how the fact that the route goes through these areas has genuinely decimated local populations. This is when we talk about narcotics trafficking. When we talk about arms trafficking, we have to essentially understand that the Northeast is flooded with arms like light machine guns, self-loading rifles, mortars, grenades, and these are supplied by external actors in most cases, either by Pakistan's ISI or by Myanmar's insurgent groups like the KNU, KIA, USWA. In fact, from surrendered weapons that had been taken from Alpha rebels, they found marks of the USWA on them. So it is extremely clear that there are deeply transnational networks that are occurring that have flooded hubs like Assam, Tripura, Nagaland, and their capitals with these kind of dangerous firearms essentially. And what the insurgents basically do is that not only do they utilize these arms for their own violent activities, they also provide safe passage for the transference of these arms, not only here but also throughout India, even up to Kashmir. So this has again formed another parallel illicit economy which essentially further endangers internal security in the Indian state. Now, Operation Golden Bird was a joint military counter-insurgency, counter-arms trafficking operation that took place in 1995 with India and Myanmar. It basically cracked down on arms trafficking. So before this, the route that the arms used to take is that they used to come from China and Cambodia into Bangladesh, into Bangladesh, and then from Cox's Bazar and the Chittagong hill tracks, it would reach the northeast, and from there it would go elsewhere, including into Myanmar. Now, after this crackdown, essentially what happens is that these arms, they originate in the Yunnan province in China. Then they enter through Faken Nagaland and these other kind of small border towns on the border, and they enter into India through that route. It has also become more concerning because there are informal alliances, reciprocal alliances that have begun to exist between ordnance factories in Myanmar's Wa state and in the Yunnan province, where essentially they are now illicitly jointly producing weapons which are then being transported into India. So this of course is a very obvious threat to internal security, because at any point insurgents even without weaponry are extremely dangerous to Indian peace. With weaponry, especially weaponry that has been funded and sourced and provided by external actors who are more powerful, who have more resources, the constellation of factors which would make this dangerous is absolutely frightening. So the third issue with or the third issue that we will discuss in this scenario is the proliferation of human trafficking, which we may view as divided into two categories: sex trafficking, prostitution or flesh trade, and child trafficking. And for me, this is the most human face and therefore the most terrifying face of this. And indeed, it is the most terrifying because it has led to human beings being sold as cattle in scenarios where, and they have absolutely had no control over what happens to them in their lives. So when we talk about sex trafficking or flesh trade, essentially what happens is that there are families that are religiously, racially, economically and politically disadvantaged. So they are of course more disproportionately affected by these factors. So these families are vulnerable to being trafficked, because essentially what happens is, especially if they have underage children and especially if they are girls, then a lot of people would convince them and tell them that they'll take their children away to the city or to other places for better opportunities, for jobs. However, essentially what would happen to them is that they would be sold into prostitution, they would be sold into domestic labor with little or no income, consistent enslavement and sexual assault, or they would be also sold into bonded labor. So essentially, the lure of a better life, in exchange or in opposing the kind of life that they have at that point, has also convinced families, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, to sell their children into these kind of situations, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. This has become worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic because even children in the Northeast, everybody has moved online because classes are occurring online. So this has also led to higher cases of children getting trafficked, children being attacked or infiltrated by child pornographers, by individuals who have gained their trust, kidnapped them, and then taken them away. This is one side of the story. The other side of the story is also child trafficking. So generally children are either sold into small tea shops or small departmental stores or these kind of small enterprises, and their parents essentially sell them into these enterprises because they cannot afford to give them an education, and they believe that the income that will come from it will better their devastated and destitute situation. The other and truly terrifying aspect of child trafficking is that these children are also forced and sent to work in the mines in the Jaintia Hills, which are the coal mines. And the problem here is that these mines are made in such a way that with such narrow winding passages, the only people who can extract coal from there are the small bodies of children. So children are, despite the existence of so many articles in our constitution that prohibit this kind of exploitation, children are essentially put into these conditions, and they are having to crawl through these hazardous mines, and so many of them have essentially died and their bodies have never been found. So essentially these are the entire gamut of trafficking and smuggling that essentially occurs throughout the Northeast. Now what is the solution to this? The government has to approach this from a politico-military perspective. From the military end, the problem why this continues to occur is because the border is extremely porous. It is not completely fenced, and also border security officials have some of them have made corrupt, have essentially become corrupt and garnered local relationships with the with the population, which has allowed them to also sympathize with whatever is happening. So the solution to this essentially is the proper fencing of the border, number one. Number two, the setting up of checkposts at very close distances to disallow any kind of smuggling or trafficking from taking place. And the difficulty, of course, is that it is a mountainous, hilly, forested terrain, so it is difficult to do this. So of course more resources has to be introduced here to deal with this extremely exacerbated problem. There also has to be the development of a proper oversight mechanism that would ensure that BSF and other officials, law enforcement officials, maintain professional ethics of conduct. On the political or the social side, there has to be more schemes. They do exist, schemes do exist, but more schemes to ensure that these people in the Northeast, these inhabitants, do not feel more alienated from the Indian population than they already are. So this is also something that needs to be done. There needs to be more education initiatives, more cultural awareness initiatives, more information sharing initiatives, culture sharing initiatives that would ensure that these individuals, they would feel that they are as much a part of the country as anybody else. So essentially, for the most scholars, a combination of politico-military strategies would be able to best combat trafficking in the Northeast that is arising as a challenge to internal security.